Thank you for coming to Letting Go, Managing Anxiety and Perfectionism. My name's Casey Gardner, and I am a gifted and talented social emotional learning counselor at Stevens Elementary and Ryan Elementary. Please write down any questions as we go through because this is fast, and then we can talk about them on October 1st. So let's start with anxiety, girl. This is a lot of our kids, not just the girls. Oh, good grief, these tights are too tight. I think I'm going to die. Lots of sensory issues with some of our kids. They're able to jump to the worst conclusion in a single bound. And if that doesn't look like one of your kids, maybe this one does. Anxious kids might seem withdrawn or angry. They might deny that there's a problem. They might become or seem emotionally numb, play more aggressively, frequently recreate past trauma, avoid new things, and have a lot of somatic complaints, stomach ache, leg ache, headache, that kind of stuff. We use this iceberg with all sorts of feelings. And so the whole thing that we teach the kids is what we see up here isn't always what the real issue is. That's just what we're presenting to the world. So a kid might look really angry, but maybe they're feeling overwhelmed or nervous or sad, and it's coming out as anger. So it's really important that we look deeper than the presenting behavior. Special considerations for gifted kids are that they're more intense. So I like that it says keep intense and embrace your giftedness. It's one of the special things about them, and it's not a bad thing. It just is. So Dabrowski's theory, he has five overexcitabilities, and one of them is emotional overexcitabilities. And that means that their intensity of emotion is bigger than other kids. They just feel things deeper. They have a broader range of emotions. They feel like they're mirroring emotions and feelings of others. Their affective memory is really strong. So they'll not just remember that they baked cookies with grandma, but they'll remember what it smelled like, what they tasted like, all those kind of things. And there's a lot of fear and anxiety. Asynchrony applies to development. And so it's that uneven development. When you look at the 5 areas of child development, you have physical, emotional, intellectual, social, and some people call it spiritual or moral. Like, how do you know right from wrong? A lot of gifted parents or parents of gifted kids, which a lot of times are gifted parents, they say that they feel like they're parenting 3 kids. Physically, the kid's 8. Intellectually, they're 13. But maybe they're still biting and hitting when they get frustrated because that social and that moral part of their brain just hasn't had a chance to develop. It'll get there, but they're a little out of sync with other kids' development. They have heightened emotions and awareness. They often feel more vulnerable, and their developmental and psychological differences are different from neurotypical kids. Giftedness is a neuroatypicality. And there's nothing wrong with that. It just means that they're different. Perfectionism is a big thing with a lot of our kids. It means dissatisfaction with anything that's not perfect or doesn't meet exceedingly high standards. And so it's important to remember that perfectionism doesn't necessarily go everywhere. Maybe we're a perfectionist about our writing, but not about keeping our room clean, and that's okay. That's pretty typical. But it feels like worry, fear, anxiety, anger, and we want to teach kids to focus on perfection. The kids are focused on perfection, not on excellence. It's all or nothing. We want them to do their best work, obviously. It doesn't have to be perfect because nothing is. Okay. So ADHD and anxiety have a lot of things in common. As this graphic shows you, there's impulsivity, difficulty focusing, other attention struggles, lots of emotional meltdowns, difficulty sleeping, restlessness, and avoidance that they have in common. Sometimes you could add autism in there and see where the 3 of them also match, because there's a lot of kids that do have all 3 of these. This is an important thing that we teach kids, we teach teachers, but beneath every behavior, there's a feeling, and beneath every feeling is a need. When we meet that need, rather than focus on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause, not the symptom. So that goes along really nice with that iceberg analogy that we used earlier. So if what we're seeing is anger, but we've dug deeper and we know that the issue is they're really afraid they're going to fail their math class, if we can maybe get them a little extra help on math or a little extra time, then that anger goes away because we met the need. If we're just working on the anger, it's not going to go away because we haven't met that need. High functioning anxiety, some people think, oh, this is great. Look, they're detail oriented, they're outgoing, active, super helpful, hardworking, they perform well under pressure, they're loyal. But what's going on in their body is they're overthinking everything. They're trying to be a people pleaser. They can't slow down. They can't say no. Fearing of failure. They're procrastinating or over planning, and they have poor boundaries. So it's really not a very healthy place to be living.
Perfectionism, what emerged for me in the data was that perfectionism is not about striving for excellence or healthy striving, which I'm for.
Yeah.
It's a cognitive behavioral process, a way of thinking and feeling that says this: if I look perfect, do it perfect, work perfect, and live perfect, I can avoid or minimize shame, blame, and judgment.
You know what I thought when I was reading this? I had another aha.
Two people.
This was my other aha. That perfectionism, I never gotten this before until I read this, that perfectionism is the ultimate fear. That the people who are walking around as perfectionists, who have to have everything that they are ultimately afraid that the world is going to see them for who they really are and they won't measure up.
There's no question. That's what it
That's
is for
correct,
me.
right?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fear.
Because it's very different than trying to be excellent and working hard and doing your best. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I call perfectionism the 20-ton shield. We carry it around thinking it's going to protect us from being hurt.
Yeah.
But it protects us from being seen.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know people who are, and I actually think, kind of sad because you're striving for a world that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I can see right through it.
God, it's so slippery. I'm like a recovering perfectionist. For
Really?
me, it's like one day at a time. Yeah, because like if I'm feeling...
How did it show up for you?
Academically, in my work. Like if we've missed church for a couple of Sundays, my kids are going in starched outfits on that Sunday, the next Sunday, just be beyond judgment, which there's no such thing.
Yep.
So why are so many gifted kids perfectionists? Many gifted kids find the beginning of school, kindergarten, preschool, first grade, even up to sometimes fourth and fifth grade, to just be too easy for them. So they don't learn how to tolerate frustration, how to persevere through difficult tasks, how to maintain commitment to something that's taking more time for them to get. And that means that they think that things should be effortless. And then when it's not, then they feel like imposters. And we go into both perfectionism and imposter syndrome. So it's really important that we challenge kids appropriately when they're young. This is a video we teach the kids about how the brain and the amygdala hand model, how that helps teach them about their brain and their emotions.
The more you understand how your brain works and how thoughts and emotions interact, the more control you can have over your thoughts and emotions. It's your brain. It's time for you to start controlling your own thoughts and emotions. So let's talk about how thoughts and feelings interact. We're going to break it down using a visual, the hand model. We're going to use our hand for this. Your thumb, folding it in, is the middle of your brain, your amygdala. Your fingertips, folding it around, is your prefrontal cortex, the front of your brain. We'll come back to this in a second. Our amygdala is really important in serious situations. For example, if you see a fire, it alerts you into action. It cuts off access to your prefrontal cortex where you think and reason, which is great. You don't need to calculate just how long it will take for the house to burn down. You just need to move. Back to your hand. Your amygdala in the center, with the fingers curled around, flips the prefrontal cortex lid. Flip the lid. Try it with me. Put your thumb in the middle,
hold your fingertips, and force your fingertips over with your thumb, the amygdala. This could save your life in the fire situation.
So we need our amygdala, but here's the problem. Your amygdala makes mountains out of molehills. So when there isn't a fire, and just say a pop quiz, your amygdala may react the same and flip your lid when there's no need to. When your lid is flipped, that's when your thoughts and emotions become muddled. When this happens, it means your thoughts are driven by your amygdala and they are often distorted. This can fuel your worry or anxiety.
So your lid is still flipped, and you need your prefrontal cortex to perform well on that pop quiz. So you have to find a way to get the prefrontal cortex to come down so you can think and reason.
Bringing your lid down is tough for all of us. We'll dive further into that next.
So this other video, we're not going to watch, but you can find it. It's called Why Do We Lose Control of Our Emotions? It's another YouTube video that we work with the kids, that we show the kids. So we teach kids calming strategies all the time, and we focus on breathing to start because your lungs are always with you. So there's lots of different breathing strategies, especially for the younger kids. As they get older, they don't want to look so different, but we still have strategies for them. So the first one is hot cocoa. So you picture you've got a cup of hot cocoa, you're smelling it, and then you hold your breath for a few seconds, and then you cool down the cocoa. The next is lazy eights, where you're just picturing an 8 on its side. You're watching your finger, and try to have the cross point right in front of your nose so that you are crossing the midline, which brain research says helps you to connect all of the parts of your brain. We also have 5-finger breathing, where we start here and we breathe in, slowly hold our breath, breathe out, then breathe in, all the way through. The little kids really like these ones. Again, inhaling flowers, and I'm going to blow out a birthday candle. Very similar to hot cocoa. It looks exactly the same. Some kids just prefer to be imagining flowers and birthday candles. Box breathing is also called square breathing, and this is the one that the older kids and even a lot of adults, including me, tend to use. So you can just draw an imaginary box on your leg, on your desk, whatever. And just like with the other ones, we draw a cross and breathe in. Then we hold our breath as we go down. Then we breathe out as we go over. Then we hold our breath. Then we breathe in, and so on. And that way, if they're doing it on their leg, nobody knows that they're doing it, and it gives them a chance to reconnect the parts of their brain. This grounding exercise is huge, and the kids really identify with it a lot. It's great for if you're having a panic attack or if you need to stay calm or feel disconnected from your body. And one thing that's really important about this is you don't just do these things, you have to say them. So I could just look around and say, okay, I see 5 different things, but that's not going to reconnect my amygdala to my prefrontal cortex. So I need to quietly say those things out loud. I see my water bottle. I see my walkie-talkie. I see the phone. I see some index cards, and I see my glasses. And then I go on to 4 things I feel, 3 things I hear, 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste. And you can do it in any order, but this is the easiest, especially because often, unless you're eating or you just ate, you only have 1 taste in your mouth. Come on. Reflection strategies are another thing we work with kids on. We want kids to learn to go from this, where there's only success or failure. They don't see things as good enough, because that's the perfectionist in them. But we want them to go here. If you have something that just needs to get done, for example, putting the milk back in the fridge, you just have to put it in the fridge. That's it. But obviously, if you're doing brain surgery, you really need to be focusing on every tiny little detail because you have to be your best at that. And it's important that kids realize that some things you just need to get done. And then with problem solving, we often use the terms microwave versus crock pot. Some things have a microwave solution, and we just spend a short amount of time solving that problem, versus a crock pot where you probably need to spend a little bit more time. Flipping the scene is where I think of the advice that I would give to a friend, and then I give that advice to myself, because we tend to be way more tolerant of other people's imperfections than our own. And we can accept them in there. Same issue. We can accept them in our friends, and we tend to reject them in us. And so it's important that we start that self-talk of positive coaching stuff. Like, hey, you can do this. Let's take some deep breaths. You did really well on your math test last week. You can do really well on your math test this week. That kind of stuff. And then time is another factor. So we want them to be thinking about, is this going to matter in 5 minutes? Okay, someone just cheated at kickball. In 5 minutes, the game's moved on. Is it still going to matter? Maybe, maybe not. What about an hour? The end of the day, in a week, in a month, in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years, and 10 years. Obviously, in 10 years, some things are going to matter. If you had a big trauma, lost a parent, whatever, that is going to be something that's still going to matter. But the little recess squabbles, the fights with our friends, the not doing well on a test, those are going to factor in, and they're going to bother us for a little bit, but it's not going to be for days and days or years. And so is it worth the stress? If we didn't do well on our math test, we can talk to our teacher about what can we do to, do revisions or whatever. And often teachers have that built in. You do some corrections, you get a few extra points, and that brings your grade up. So is it worth stressing out 6 months later? No. We've talked about red flags in other presentations, and these are green flags. These are things we want in our relationships with our kids, and that things that we want to help provide for kids. So it supports your personal growth, practices self-care, self-reflection, long-standing friendships, empathy, vulnerability, spirituality, however that looks to you, self-sufficiency, healthy hobbies, communicate openly, honor boundaries, and self-responsibility. We want to help kids develop these things. And sometimes it's hard because it's easier to just do things for them, but we need them to struggle through and get better at these things. So super fast, please write down any questions, and we will look forward to seeing you on Tuesday the 1st. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.